Hey everyone, today we're going to be talking about B2B, B2C, and then believe it or not, B2B2C, which in fact is actually something. I was talking to a coach about 2 days ago. No, it wasn't 2 days ago, 2 weeks ago. That's how time flies. Can you believe it's halfway through the year? Reminding you though, it is June and June is my birthday month. Just reminding everyone. So B2B2C is a thing. And for me, I always thought that you either had to be B2B or you had to be B2C. One of the things I did or have been trying to do over the last couple of years is get more into the B2B market. And I will tell you why, because there is bigger money to be had in the B2B market, but it's a different market. It's not an easy market. It has a different buying cycle. It has different touch points. You've got to map out the journey a little bit differently as opposed to sort of B2C. So we're very familiar with B2C. I'm going to give you the differences between the two. And then we're also going to talk about B2B2C, which I recently have worked out is probably a niche that I'm going to be a lot more involved in. And I'll give you an example. So for example, I'll use an old example. I worked with a company that does stainless steel drink bottles, but they do high quality stainless steel drink bottles. Now they want to put their high quality stainless steel products into all the environmental shops, the chemists, all the different shops that have it. So they would supply the shop, which is business to business, and those shops would sell to the customers. However, they also sell to the customer off their website as well. So it is becoming more acceptable now that you're not just B2B or B2C, that you can actually be B2B2C. Now, for that particular company, it was important because being the stainless steel company, they were trying to get into, let's say, all the, like the Flanneries. However, the Flanneries already had people, they already had brands inside their shop. So they're like, well, why must we choose your brand? Why should we use you? Like, you're just another business now that we've got to bring on, and we've already got people there. So the responsibility of their marketing or their strategy that we came up with was we've got to get them recognizable and reputable within the industry as a brand so that the consumer, the customers start asking for them so that the shops like Flannery's would start stocking their product. Okay, so that's business to business. So, but they were also B2C because they would also sell directly to the customer. So on their website, you could go and you could still buy certain products. All right. Obviously, they'd be more expensive. The wholesale stuff would obviously go to the B2B stores, but they would be selling bigger units. So if you imagine if they got something like Flannery's, right? And they had to now stock, I don't know, 50 drink bottles, 50 stainless steel drink bottles per month. It's a lot better than selling to you and me, which is only probably going to buy one drink bottle, every 6 months or every 12 months. So that's the difference between B2B to C. Okay. So the B2B stands for business to business, where the business sells products or services to other businesses, which is really important. I'm just going to put this up here. See, let me know if that annoys your eyes, if my eyes annoy your eyes. So B2B is business to business, where businesses sell products or services to other businesses. But B2C is obviously business to consumer or customer, and it's where the business targets personal customers. Now, B2B2C is business to consumer, where businesses access customers through other businesses, and they may or may not interact directly through their own brand or business. So some B2B2Cs will only sell to businesses, and they will not sell it themselves. They will not actually sell direct, like from their website at all. They will just sell to the business who sells to the consumer. That's B2B. But if they sell themselves, then it's B2B2C is the business. I'm hoping that makes sense. But they may or may not and directly actually market to them. So which business model actually applies to your business? And you can discover the differences between the two or the three different models and how you can best apply these models for your own business. So suppose it's about first understanding what model do you have? What is the strategy of that model that you have? and then exploring the various other models to go, well, how can you transition or pivot or have another model within your business to explore other growth opportunities. So according to Forrester Research, it may surprise you that the B2B market is much bigger than the B2C market. I mean, it doesn't surprise me that it's bigger. In fact, it is more than double the size of the B2C market. And the B2B market is worth $780 billion. So B2B is more financially rewarding. However, it involves a lot of moving parts. And there are many more decisions to be made in the buying process. And there's a lot more touch points. And generally, the sales cycle is a little bit longer. So with many of us that have got the expo that's coming up, next week, it is a longer sales cycle for someone like myself. So for someone like Jane, who's selling art products at the actual expo, she's selling B2C. So business to customer, she will just say, do you want to buy this? Don't you want to buy this? Or do you want to come to my, paint and sip? For myself, it's about having those relationships. It is a longer sales cycle. They may not buy because, the program might be $2,000 to $5,000. They may not buy on the day because they're going to require those touch points. It's going to be a longer sales cycle. So there are opportunities for your business financial growth with all these different models, especially if you understand how the models differ and if you apply the right client generation strategy from each of these models. So you can't treat them all the same. I think that this is really important to understand. So whether it's a relationships building strategy that you have, or whether or not it's a communication strategy that you have, the different business models all have different approaches in order to maximize the effectiveness of it. And your marketing needs to be tailored specifically to those models. So what is the goal of the B2C marketing? Okay, so B2C is what most of you are. So B2C goal is to drive traffic to the website and to make sales. And to do this, the customer journey needs to be seamless. So it's very funnel focused, and it's literally, you see something, you get emotionally attached to that thing, they send you to where it is to purchase, and you purchase. So there's actually minimal time spent acquiring the customer, and it's very transactional. There's not a lot of conversations that you have backwards and forwards. In fact, you actually try to limit the communication as much as possible. So when we're working out funnels together, we try and handle objections. We try and, in our marketing, we handle objections. We keep it as simple as possible. We say, click here. We keep the process really short because we don't want people, especially if you say you're just selling like one pen, you don't want someone messaging you and asking you 1,000 questions about one pen. So it is a very simple transaction. And often it'll include things like coupon codes or sales or discounts or email marketing to help get that person across the line. And the key focus is that you understand your ideal clients, buying persona. So when it comes to B2B marketing, it's about lead generation primarily, and it focuses on building strong client relationships. And I'm going to say this, it's about the right relationships. So it's slower to form those relationships because, and you've heard me say it 1,000 times, you have to be careful who you get into bed with. So when you are getting into bed with other business owners, you want to make sure or be perfectly clear on whether or not they're the right strategic partner for you. And it's about developing those relationships, and it's about understanding those buying cycles, and it's about driving long-term business, not short-term business. I'll give you an example of that. So at one of the expos about 3 years ago, Jason from Master Plumbers Association came up to my stand. He came up to me and he had a look at what I did. We had a conversation about my point of difference and what it is that I do differently. And he said to me, could we have a conversation outside of the expo? So I followed up with him outside of the expo. We had another conversation as well to get to know my business a bit more, and for me to ask him about his role in Master Plumbers Association and how I can support them. From there, I then got, I think it was another conversation that we had was around how can I support the plumbers of Australia. So basically that was me having a business to business conversation or strategic partnership with him so that I would be able to help his customers. And it was a long game. It probably was up to about a year of conversations before eventually, I had the opportunity and the access to his clients when he made his mind up that I was the right person to be able to support his clients. So those relationships need to be strong, but they need to be strategic, and they also need to be the right one, because he's not going to trust you. He's not going to trust the wrong person with his tribe. So the focus is on professionalism and the right people being in the right positions. So when it comes to positioning yourself, positioning as a B2B business, brand recognition obviously is really important. So brand awareness, recognition, professionalism, really important. Number two, it's heavily focused on relationship building. So it's not a quick fix. It's very much like networking, where you have to build that know, like, and trust, and you've got to fully understand the person's business and how you can support each other. Number three is around differentiation. So how do you differentiate yourself from all the other businesses? So why should they choose to get into bed with you and to work with you over and above everyone else? So as I said, those partnerships, you have to make sure that they are done strategically and with the right person. And at the end of the day, the person buying isn't actually the end user. So for example, when I'm having conversations with Jason, he's not the end user. The end user are the plumbers in his association. However, he is there forming the strategic partnerships on behalf of those plumbers. And I think it's important to understand that. What's also important to understand is that you are in a partnership with those businesses. So it is your role to be in that partnership with them and to support each other. So in B2C, it's not like that. It's kind of like you buy from someone, the relationship's just between you and them. But here, you've actually got a partnership with another B2B person who is responsible for the end user buyers. And you have to build that relationship and get their trust to get to those end users. So you don't simply sell to those people. So for example, I didn't sell to Jason. I didn't say to Jason, buy my program on the day. It was around, we need to have a conversation. And I need to obviously be able to provide them with support materials, any other sample products that you may have. So anything else that you may have to develop that know, like, and trust. And it's all about, when you have that relationship, it then is about continuing those relationships, helping them out, so that whatever you can do to support them with the end user will mean that they stay loyal to you. So ensure that you've got guidelines in place. So, any agreements that you have with other B2B businesses, you want to have agreements or guidelines in place. And you want to just check whether or not there is a compete or non-compete. So for example, I'll give you a story about Essex. Essex, many years back now, Essex had this thing that they would supply Essex shoes to Australian stores. Okay, so that Essex in America said, we will never sell directly to Australians. So Australians cannot buy from Essex in the US. They have to go and buy from Essex in Australia or the Essex stores. What ended up happening is, when there was a little bit of a downturn, they had all this excess stock. They suddenly started to sell to the consumer, and all the stores in Australia boycotted Essex and said, we will not buy any more shoes from you. So all the stores in Australia said, we will not buy any more shoes from you unless you stop selling to the end user. Because what ended up happening was, I would go into a store, I would try on a pair of shoes. This is a true story. I would try on a pair of shoes. I would then get my size and get my model. I'd then go home and buy from Essex in the US and get them cheaper, delivered to my door. So it is important that when you're working with B2B business owners, that there are guidelines in place, there are boundaries in place, and everyone clearly understands whether or not there's a compete or non-compete clause, depending on your model, and then what those rules are. because there will be. Sometimes there's only certain items that they can buy from them. The end-to-end user can only buy, say, a limited range, but the other range they can actually only buy in other stores. So you actually want to be there for your buyers. It's about that relationship with the B2B business owner, so that they keep stocking your products. Because as I said, they're not buying one drink bottle, they're buying 50 drink bottles or 1,000 drink bottles. So you want to keep those relationships strong, and you want to keep their confidence in the market. So you're getting the end user to trust and believe in your brand is really important, so that they keep asking for the product. Because if people stop asking, if the customer stops asking for that particular drink bottle, then they will not have a clause or a reason to continue buying from or buying your stock anymore. So it is your responsibility as that business owner. So it is your responsibility as that business owner to continue to build that brand, and to continue to showcase that brand as a strong brand, so that the customer continues to ask. So it's really twofold with that business to business, because you have to keep those relationships going with the other businesses that you have, so that they like using your product. But you've also got to get the consumers to continue to ask for your product, else it won't happen. So okay, so what is the most important strategy for B2C? So business to consumer or customer. Your brand voice is really important. Brand loyalty is really important, and showing credibility. But connection with your customer is really important, and basically compelling them to buy. Compelling them to buy and making it super simple is your most important strategy when it comes to B2C. Because the person that is actually buying from you is the end user. So knowing who that person is, knowing how to communicate that person, and having a really simple funnel in place so they actually buy from you is your most important strategy for B2C. So B2B versus B2C in customer communication. And you'll often hear me talk about communication, because effective communication is so super important. I think that I continue to work on my communication all the time. And when someone doesn't understand something, I then go, okay, well, that needs to be improved. Just like that, we asked for feedback on the brochure that I sent out. And many of you noticed that the first item that I had didn't have a time frame. So rather than not have a time frame, it makes more sense then to, I think it was Jody who said, put in the clause to say self-paced. So at least the explanation is clear of what that offer is. So getting feedback is really important. So B2B often offer open communication in the decision-making process. So if they're making a decision to work with you, business to business, open communication, and there is a lot of back and forth. I'm working with a lady at the moment. She's brought me in to go into their company and come up with a strategy for their company. They are business to business. I've probably had about 5 or 6 conversations, and there's about 10 emails backwards and forwards. So the decision-making process is a lot longer. So you need to expect that, and you need to be comfortable with that. And you need to follow through and follow up. So because it is a longer cycle. So B2B is very niche focused. So it is what it is. Like whatever that business is what they do. Whereas B2C, is a lot more broader, because you might sell a variety of products, as opposed to just B2B, which primarily is one very niche focused. So the B2B buying cycle goes like this. First, people are aware. Then they show interest in it. Then they consider it, which means they go to the marketplace and they consider your option over and above everyone else. So that's where obviously that communication comes in with the back and forth. There's then intention. So they might take it further, like book a call, or, want to discuss it further with you, or maybe ask you for, maybe they ask you for a brochure. Maybe they want you to send a presentation through or present to them. But, that is in the intention stage. And then the last part is the evaluation stage. So they very much will also look at metrics and statistics, and they will look at the pros and cons of things in the decision-making process. And they'll also look at the pros and cons, but they'll also look at outcomes. They'll very much be looking at what is the outcome of us using your product versus using someone else's. So very much outcome based. So when it comes to B2C, B2C, you basically trying to limit the content, the contact between customer and the buying process. As I said, can you imagine if you're selling pens and there's 50 people a day trying to ask you questions about a pen? So, you know, perhaps that's when you put a messenger bot in there to be able to answer those questions. So B2C is very, very much funnel focused. The intention is a short cycle. You see the pencil, you get excited about the pencil, you explain why the pencil is the best person for that person, and you basically get them to buy without without having too much contact or too much communication between them. So the B2C buying cycle looks like, I'm aware of the product, I'm interested in the product, I now desire the product because you've evoked curiosity in me. It's like, I must have it. And because you put coupon codes or sale ends in 24 hours, or, you know, there's only 3 of these left, or there's only one left in red, suddenly I desire it, so I have to have it. And then basically the last step in the buying cycle is they take action and they purchase. So when it comes to the B2B marketing campaigns, when it comes to B2B, it's very much niche and industry specific language. So it is what it is, and they don't tone down the language of it, because if you don't understand that language, you probably shouldn't be in business with that business. So if they're talking about software and they're using the specs, for example, of the software, and you don't understand that, you're probably not going to get into business with them if you don't understand it. Whereas B2C is more about talking about the language of that person. So it very much includes niche industry specific language, which focuses on their credibility and showing their expertise. And it's less on emotional buying. It's more on the facts and benefits of this, of using this product or service. When it comes to B2C marketing campaigns, it's all about evoking emotion in the ideal customer. So it's about the ideal customer getting heavily engaged in that product or emotionally connected to that product, and then so that they're compelled to buy. So to give you an example of the lengths of the buying cycle, if I was to buy a $300 bicycle, it's going to take me less time to make the decision than it's going to take me if I was going to buy like $50,000 software for a company. I would use emotive words to get people to buy the bicycle quicker, with possibly a discount offer, whilst to buy $50,000 worth of software for a company, it's going to take credibility, it's going to take a phone call, and it's going to be a much longer sales cycle. You're also going to do a lot more comparisons as well. So when it comes to business versus B2C, the summary, simply put, B2B is about lower volume and higher prices, and B2C is about higher volume and lower prices. B2B is about education and efficiency. B2C is about entertainment and convenience. B2B is about interpersonal relationships. So there's a lot of that communication happening, versus B2C, which is very transactional. It's like, thank you for that pen. You know, it's very transactional. B2B is about logic and the features of that product or service, whereas B2C is very much about the desires and the belief systems around it. B2B is around long-term goals, because it's a long-term relationship that you're going to have with them, and you're going to be in business with them, working with them, versus B2C, which is very short-term goals. B2B, as I said, has got a very long sales cycle, and B2C has got a short sales cycle. So B2B2C is where they sell to businesses who sell to the consumer, and they, in fact, may also sell directly to the consumer. And again, that is, you've got to make sure that in your business model that you clearly communicate, or there's guidelines about what it is, because just like ASICs, you don't want all the stores turning around and going, I'm not stocking your product anymore because you're selling directly to the customer. So you've got to make sure that that both parties are happy, and it's a win-win, because ultimately you want to keep the B2B happy, because they are ordering large volume of things. So they might be buying it at wholesale, well, they will be buying it at wholesale, but they're buying larger volumes. So you're making a lot more profit, a lot more sales going the B2B route. So you don't want to jeopardize that relationship because you're selling, 1 pen here when they're selling 1,000 pens over here. You want to keep that relationship going. So it's paramount that they recognize that each of the customers have different sets of needs, wants, and value propositions or offers. So, for someone like myself who's working very much in the B2B and B2C market, I have to understand that they are different customers. They've got different needs, they've got different wants, and they've got different offers, but they also have got different buying cycles and different touch points. And it means that you've got to be able to communicate differently to both of them. You have to also use a different approach with each of them. So whether or not you're talking to the B2B or the B2C, you've got to have a different approach and you've got to communicate in a different way. And how you market and you sell to a business is different on how you market and sell to an end user customer. So I think it's about having that hat on when you're in your business. If you're in a B2B2C business, it's about having that hat on and going, who am I talking to right now? Am I talking to the B2B person who's not the end user, but they're responsible for bringing it to the end user? Or am I talking to the B2C right now? Because it's going to be different language. It's going to be a different process. So what is the consistent between the B2B, B2C, and B2B2C? Yes, I've said it right. At the end of the day, all of them are humans, and all of them are humans that are doing the buying. So all you need to understand is you've just got to know that human that's in front of you, and you've just got to understand the process that's relevant to them and how to engage with them. Now, many of you would have felt this already, because when you're on Facebook, it's very much sort of B2C. You're talking to customers that are wanting to buy from you. However, on LinkedIn, for example, it's very much B2B, and you can feel the etiquette changes quite drastically on how they engage or talk to each other. So how do you create more B2B, more opportunities? So I've got a whole list over here, which I took from online. So I'm going to share that with you, how to create more B2B opportunities. So number one is you have to have more real conversations with more real of the right people. So you just need to have more conversations with more of the right people. And that's in different avenues. And we spoke about that briefly before the session started, and networking is part of that. It's not just being online, but it's actually having that networking as well. So number two is about creating a list of targeted businesses. So if you were wanting more B2B opportunities, it's about looking at what other businesses service your clients that you're not in competition with, that you can actually work with. So number three is targeted personalized emails. So in the B2B market, it's not a case of sticking, or you can also stick people in segmented sequences, which is one of our things, but it is also important to note that to send personalized emails, engaging them, asking how they're going, would you like to have a conversation? The next one is warm calling. So warm calling is calling previous people that you've engaged with. So for example, I've got my list of all the people from every single expo that I've ever gone to. So I could warm call and call people from my expo list from last year and say, we've got a new expo coming up. How's everything going? Wondering if you're going to be exhibiting this year. I'd love to say hi. If you don't have time on the day, that's okay. Here's a reminder of who I am and what I do. Would you like to have a chat? So warm calling is you've engaged with them previously. It's about reaching out and engaging with them further. As I said, segmented email sequences, making sure that they are segmented. So if it is B2B business owners, that the conversation is relevant only to B2B, that you're not mixing your language between B2C and B2B, because they are different. Having a live chat on your website is a great way to help, because 42% of customers prefer live chats as a form of customer support on a website, especially with B2B businesses. The next one is including a link to a promotion in your email signature. And I thought that's a really good one. I mean, I'm not sure when last I actually went to my email signature and checked it and strategically thought about, what I could do in my email signature that could potentially, help create more leads for me. So that was a really good one. That's one that I'm taking away from this session for myself and going to go and implement. Joining and engaging in Facebook and LinkedIn groups. So it's about starting conversations and engaging in conversations. Listing your business in online directories. Being a part of industry forums, expos, or summits. Getting reviews. 87% of B2B decision makers look for online and honest reviews before purchasing. So if you want to get into that market, you have to have reviews. Remarket or retarget visitors to your website, which is really important if you've got CRM or if your email marketing platform has that capability. Using SEO to increase website traffic. So many times people think they've got to pay for SEO, but more importantly, it's just about doing the right thing on your website. So if you didn't watch last week's private session on website traffic, I highly recommend you watch it, because there were some incredibly helpful back-end strategies for your website, which can help you get organic SEO. The next one is optimizing your website or your landing pages to include whether or not it's business to.
Has Chantel just frozen for everyone else?
Yep, frozen for me.
Yeah.
She's talking away and she probably not even realizing. Oh,
At least it's a good freeze frame of her.
Yep.
Hey, put your bum down.
Gonna have to do a reboot by the looks of it. She's probably been kicked off.
Yep. Still recording.
NBN strikes again.
Yep. That's funny.
She'll be back.
Oh, she'll be back. She won't let that go. She'll be fighting with a dongle or whatever, or a phone, or to get back on. It's just getting good as well. All the B2B stuff, all the little tips that we need to become more efficient in that respect.
You got to take your mute off now.
Thank you.
There you go.
You guys are going to keep telling me what to do all the time. I'm hoping that recording is going to, we've had a power outage, so I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, well, it kept recording.
Ah, awesome. So I hope you guys weren't talking about, naughty stuff.
No.
All right. So where was I up to? Who remembers where I was up to?
Your hands were like this.
Oh, my hands are always like that. So using ebooks and free resources, as part of your leads funnel. But I think if you're going to use ebooks and resources, it's important to ensure that the title of that is relevant to the B2B industry, if that's the industry you're getting into. So, for example, you would have seen on my flyer right now, what did I call mine? I think I said get leads on repeat while you sleep. Which is very much a business to business sort of strategy. So that's why I've got a specific lead magnet that I've formed, which is going to be specific for the B2B market at the expo, because they are businesses to business. So talking to the decision makers, I think that's really important. You have to determine who the decision makers are, and speak to those people, and also guest interviews or guest blogging would also be good for business to business. Using white papers to generate more leads, and white papers are basically what I was talking about is a report or a guide or a checklist or something, and I'm putting one together, so I will send it to you, the one that I am putting together for the B2B market, and I will send that one to you so you can check it out. But it is actually a comprehensive report or guide on how to basically create leads funnels so that you can have hot leads on repeat while you sleep. Guest posting, collaborations, we talk about this, but in the B2B market, obviously that's still relevant. Using press releases as well. Entering awards, again, would be great. Always building on your network. So networking is incredibly important on and offline. Using your current customers to connect you with other like-minded people. I think often we forget that, but a lot of the time they already know other, if you're working with a B2B business, they know other B2B people who can potentially refer them to and say, listen, I'd love to do the same thing for them. Getting referral partners, obviously really important. So people who don't do what you do, but you can refer to. Using LinkedIn, it is a platform, now that you understand a bit more about B2B, the process, the way that you communicate, and the understanding of the longer cycle, maybe LinkedIn will feel a little bit more user-friendly to you. Looking at who your competitors are. So competitors analysis is really important as well. And again, how you can differentiate yourself from your competitors so that you can, spruik yourself over and above another business. And starting up an advisory board or, having a Facebook group as well, where you nurture those relationships. And speaking or attending industry events, very much like networking, like I was talking about earlier. So does anyone have any comments or any other questions around that? I might ask, I know Jonathan and Daryl, they very much are in the B2B markets. So it might be good to hear from them with regards to the difference between B2B and B2C. So if you guys feel comfortable talking on that, if you unmute and just tell us what you want.
Yeah, so predominantly my business deals with B2B2C. So I market directly to other businesses, and then those businesses, so it's a little bit of a different model to what you mentioned earlier. So instead of buying stuff off me directly, what they do is they refer clients to me. So in the NDIS space, a lot of the marketing's done through what's called a support coordinator. And they'll basically help participants set up their different supports. And so it's a matter of getting those support coordinators to know that you're there so that they can market you to their clients, and then their clients can connect with us and use our services.
So building relationships with those strategic partners is really important, because basically they can get into bed with everyone, but they choose to get into bed with Jonathan. So it's about keeping those relationships and having those two-way conversations so that those relationships stay strong, so that they continue to refer and trust their end user, their customers with Jonathan.
Exactly.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Jonathan. Daryl, have you got... because it's great to hear these examples, because it can help people be more clear on the process.
Yeah. Okay. So for me, when I do B2B, so I'm talking hotels, resorts, I'm dealing with the general manager or often the CEO. So you're absolutely correct with the way the communication is done, because it's very not sort of friendly. It's just done business to business. There's no interaction there. It's like, okay, I need a data spreadsheet on what your product does, what the output is, what the result will be, and that's kind of it. But when I go to a B2C customer, same sort of format, but completely different in terms of the customer just wants to see pretty photos and testimonials. So it's a completely different way of talking to the client, especially on that higher ranking, general manager, CEO, because the higher you get, the less time they've got with them. It's a bit like a video on social media. You got that 15 seconds and you really don't get long with those CEOs. So in order to impress, for us, we've got to have all our spec sheets, all our data, all our residual product knowledge ready to go, so that they can just look at it and make that decision. Often then they go to their board and it goes into a meeting. Again, it's all high profile professionals. Whereas the B2C is a lot easier. They just make the decision over the phone quite often. If I sent them a video, they'll go, yeah, that's what we want. Can we go ahead? So it's a lot more difficult doing B2B for us in what we do with both pool lighting and the Strikehold. However, as you said earlier, it's big opportunities with wholesale, because you get big volume. And so, yeah, you got to do a lot more work to win the order. I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, there is it's a long, you've got to do a lot more work to be able to do it. It is a longer cycle. to be able to do it. And this is why with Jane, when we were talking about Jane doing corporate team building, which basically in essence would be B2B, because they would come on and employ you to come in. The end user is their staff. So you've actually got to appeal to the company. You're not appealing to the people who are doing paint and sip, because all the staff members will go, yeah, I want to do that. But you've got to win the person over that's responsible for hiring the person, hiring you to come in for the team building. So the benefits actually got to be to the business, not to the end user.
And often I use a facilities manager for that purpose. So I'll say, how good would it be good if I could make you look good? And they sort of say, well, how can you do that? I say, well, how about we turn your pool into an absolute wow factor for starters? And that is easy, but for them, that result is so manageable, because now they go, I've got this guy in, this is what we did for starters. And they have their board meeting and show the magnificent pool, which then is so easy to get other things signed off. So again, different way of doing business, but if you get the facilities manager on side, it's very powerful in that B2B, because they talk to all the engineers and they have networking events for just engineers. So then we get referred through that format as well, because they say, these guys do a great job. Again, it's not very friendly, it's more formal, business-like, but it's business, and it does create friendships later on, but it takes a lot longer to build that, if that makes sense. So.
Yeah, 100%. That's awesome. Thank you, Daryl. Awesome. So next week we are going to be doing end of financial year sales. So whoever does attend live, we will do end of financial year sales and mapping that out. Have left it a little late. There's like 3 weeks until end of financial years. So for those of you who are ready to go, we can map out one funnel, which is awesome.